On a summer afternoon when the wind and rain had just subsided, beneath the clarity of the Bodhi tree at Vulture Peak, a profound dialogue about friendship was unfolding. This dialogue not only reveals the unique understanding of friendship within Buddhism, but also offers valuable wisdom for interpersonal relationships in our daily lives. Venerable Ananda stood beneath the 1,000-year-old Bodhi tree, his expression somber. During an earlier Dharma assembly, he had a heated dispute with the Venerable Mahakassapa due to differences in their teaching methods, which left him filled with confusion and anxiety. As a messenger of the Buddha, he was deeply aware that he should not lose composure in front of others, yet the relationships between people always seem to be so complex. Ananda, there is something in your mind that you do not understand. Why not speak it out so others may hear? A gentle and wise voice came from behind. Ananda turned around and saw Bodhisattva Manjushri standing there with a gentle smile, holding a golden staff, his blue robe lightly swaying in the breeze. After paying homage to Bodhisattva Manjushri, Ananda sincerely expressed his confusion, saying, "Venerable Manjushri, the Blessed One teaches us to practice compassion, to aid the world, and to treat all beings with equality. Even within the realm of Buddhism, relationships between individuals are often subtle and complex. In worldly common sayings about the way of friendship, some describe it as strong like wine, while others liken it to light as water. As practitioners on the path, how should we manage our relationships with one another?" Manjushri Bodhisattva did not respond immediately, but instead cast his gaze toward the Bodhi tree illuminated by the sunlight. "Ananda, have you ever noticed this Bodhi tree after the rain?" Ananda looked up and saw that the branches and leaves of the nearly 1,000-year-old Bodhi tree still held crystal-clear raindrops, sparkling in the sunlight like countless bright pearls. This Bodhi tree has a history of 1,000 years, enduring countless storms and hardships. "Do you know why it can stand firm without falling?" Manjushri Bodhisattva asked. Ananda pondered for a moment, thinking it must be because his roots were deep and the trunk was resilient. Manjushri Bodhisattva gently shook his head, saying, "Not entirely so. You shall watch beneath the tree." Ananda followed the gaze of Bodhisattva Manjushri and saw beneath the Bodhi tree a few inconspicuous small grasses and some wildflowers. They grew close to the tree roots, appearing weak but full of vitality. These small grasses and flowers, seemingly fragile, protect the roots of the Bodhi tree from erosion during wind and rain. They mutually depend on each other with the Bodhi tree, each attaining its proper place. Manjushri Bodhisattva explained that the Bodhi tree, despite its towering height, does not disregard the small grasses and flowers. Instead, it provides them shelter from wind and rain. This is the purest way of coexistence in the natural world. At that moment, a flock of birds swooped in from afar and perched on the branches of the Bodhi tree. These birds vary in size and feather colors, yet they harmoniously perch on the same tree without conflict. Manjushri Bodhisattva pointed to the scene and continued, "Look again at those flying birds. They come from different directions, have various feather colors and sizes, yet they coexist peacefully. There are neither agreements nor rules between them, yet they naturally maintain harmony. This is the wisdom of nature." Ananda, seemingly deep in thought, could not help but ask, "Great wisdom, Manjushri. While the relationship between trees and grass, birds and birds is indeed thought-provoking, isn't the relationship among practitioners even more complex? We each have our own cultivation goals, personality traits, and even karmic entanglements carried over from past lives." Bodhisattva Manjushri picked up a fallen leaf from the stone platform and held it carefully in his palm, observing it closely. "Ananda, do you know why this leaf falls?" "The leaf follows its own natural law of growth and decline. When autumn arrives, it naturally withers and falls." Ananda replied, "Have you ever contemplated where this fallen leaf will go?" Manjushri Bodhisattva then inquired further. As Ananda said, fallen leaves return to their roots, eventually transforming into dust that nourishes the earth. Exactly so, Bodhisattva Manjushri nodded in approval, for the leaves and the great tree appear separate. Yet in truth, life and death depend on each other. Its falling is not an end, but a form of continued existence. Isn't the relationship between people exactly the same? Just as the two were conversing, a young monk hurried over and informed Ananda that his longtime friend from his lay family, Ananda, had arrived bearing significant gifts and was waiting outside the monastery gate for some time, wishing to discuss an important matter. Ananda's face showed difficulty. Ananda was his close friend before ordination, who held an important position in the royal palace but often resorted to unscrupulous means. After Ananda became a monk, they had little contact. His sudden visit today must be for a reason. Manjushri Bodhisattva seemed to see through Ananda's concerns and said, "Go ahead, someone has come from afar and should be properly received." After a moment of hesitation, Ananda said to the young monk to wait for Mahanan, then turned to the Bodhisattva Manjushri and roughly addressed him. "I have known Mahanan for many years, and his ways of conduct have long been contrary to the Dharma. Today, you have come, I fear, to seek my help in obtaining a higher position within the royal palace. How should I face this?" Manjushri Bodhisattva looked deeply into Ananda's eyes, and the arrival of Mahananda was precisely a rare test. The Dharma emphasizes teaching according to the capacity of the listener, employing different methods for different individuals. You can try to understand its true needs. If you can resolve them with wisdom, is that not also a form of liberation and guidance? Ananda nodded in understanding, paid homage to Bodhisattva Manjushri, and then hurriedly descended the mountain upon noticing someone had left. Half an hour later, Ananda returned to the Bodhi tree with a weary expression. Manjushri Bodhisattva was still seated there peacefully, seemingly unmoved. "It seems this meeting is not going to be easy," said Bodhisattva Manjushri. Ananda sat down with a wry smile and said, "As I suspected, Mohanan Siang is using my influence in the royal court to secure a high position for himself. I refused him, but he did not understand. Instead, he thought I was heartless and ungrateful." "What are the reasons for your refusal?" Manjushri Bodhisattva inquired about the Dharma. I told him that this goes against the principles of my practice. As practitioners, we should not interfere in worldly disputes over power, Ananda said. Manjushri Bodhisattva's gaze is profound. If you express your refusal differently, explaining that it is for his own good and out of fear that he might lose himself in power, would the outcome be different? Ananda was momentarily stunned, then soon fell into deep contemplation. After a moment, he raised his head, his eyes shimmering with the light of realization. "Great wisdom, Manjushri, you mean true friendship." The mind of Bodhisattva Manjushri nodded subtly. "Ananda, you have touched upon the issue of mutual flattery and collusion among the multitude. True friendship, however, should be about mutual encouragement and progressing together towards goodness." He pointed to several monks in the distance who were discussing the Dharma, and continued, "Look at those monks. They do not associate deliberately, but come together because of their shared goal of practice. Their friendship to this day is founded on a shared pursuit of truth, neither intentionally seeking to please nor depending on each other, but each diligently advancing in practice while mutually inspiring one another." Ananda experienced a realization. I have understood. Just as water to all things does not forcefully merge nor refuse to nourish, it simply flows naturally, moistening all reachable places. Excellent. A look of approval flashed through the eyes of Bodhisattva Manjushri. True friendship should be as clear and transparent as water. They can both reflect each other's true nature and nourish each other's spiritual world, neither clinging to your garment nor remaining cold and aloof. Just as Ananda was about to continue his inquiries, the urgent sound of a bell echoed from afar, signaling the commencement of the next Dharma assembly. Numerous monks and lay practitioners converged toward the main hall from all directions. Bodhisattva Manjushri stood up and said, "It is getting late. The Buddha Shakyamuni's Dharma assembly is about to begin. Let's go and listen to the Dharma together." As the two were about to set off, Manjushri Bodhisattva suddenly stopped, turned around, and said to Ananda, "Ananda, there is one deepest secret about friendship, which transcends worldly understanding and even surpasses everything we have just discussed." Ananda immediately became interested. "Great wisdom, Manjushri, what is this secret?" Manjushri Bodhisattva smiled and replied, "After the Dharma assembly concludes, I will tell you. Once you penetrate this secret, not only will you understand how to relate to others, but you will also glimpse the profound mystery of attaining Buddhahood." Ananda, filled with curiosity, closely followed Bodhisattva Manjushri towards the grand hall, his mind continuously pondering the ultimate secret of friendship. Before the Dharma assembly began, the monks had gradually taken their seats. As soon as Ananda and Bodhisattva Manjushri entered the main hall, they sensed an extraordinary atmosphere. The Buddha sits upright on the lotus throne, his gaze sharp and penetrating, as if able to discern the doubts within each person's heart. Just as Ananda was about to take his seat, Bodhisattva Manjushri gently tugged at his sleeve and softly asked, "Ananda, do you remember the words the Blessed One spoke to the 5 monks when he first turned the Dharma wheel?" Ananda briefly contemplated and softly replied, "The Blessed One once said that all sentient beings inherently possess the wisdom and virtuous characteristics of the Tathagata, but due to deluded thoughts and attachments, they are unable to attain true enlightenment." Well said. Do you know how this statement relates to the beneficial path we just discussed? A flash of approval crossed the eyes of Bodhisattva Manjushri. A spark arose in Ananda's mind, as if he had suddenly gained insight. "Great wisdom, Manjushri. What you speak of contains a secret. Could it be related to the Buddha nature inherently possessed by all sentient beings?" Manjushri Bodhisattva's expression grew solemn and dignified, and though his voice was soft, it seemed to possess a power that could penetrate the soul. "Ananda, you have touched the core. This secret pertains to the distinction between the true self and the false self, and concerns the most fundamental connection among sentient beings. When a person truly understands this secret, they can transcend worldly attachments and aversions, reaching an unprecedented state of enlightenment." The words of Bodhisattva Manjushri stirred a tumultuous storm in Ananda's heart. The surrounding monks were also drawn by this mysterious dialogue, unconsciously gathering closer, afraid to miss a single word. Manjushri Bodhisattva looked around at the assembly. "Once this secret is deeply realized, it will not only allow you to understand the true nature of existence and non-existence, but also enable you to glimpse the pure land of Buddhahood. It can transform hatred into nothingness, turn attachment to love into wisdom, and free your mind from the various worldly afflictions that trouble you." All the monks were deeply shaken. Ananda, even more eagerly, asked, "Great wisdom, Manjushri, please enlighten me on the ultimate secret concerning existence and non-existence." Just as Bodhisattva Manjushri was about to reveal that secret, a crisp sound of a wooden fish resonated from the center of the main hall. Everyone looked up and saw the Buddha subtly raise his hand, signaling that the Dharma assembly was about to commence. Bodhisattva Manjushri gave Ananda a meaningful glance, and after the Dharma assembly, you and I shall converse. After the Dharma assembly concluded, the setting sun cast its afterglow, bathing the entire Sutra society in warm light. Ananda eagerly sought out Bodhisattva Manjushri. "Great wisdom, Manjushri, please continue to enlighten us. What is the ultimate secret behind the practice of traveling or wandering in the Buddhist tradition?" Manjushri Bodhisattva looked at the monks gradually gathering around, until even they became curious about this topic. The Bodhisattva smiled gently and slowly began, "Ananda, the true secret of the Buddha's teachings lies in the 2 words non-existence." Non-existence. Ananda and the surrounding bhikkhus exchanged glances, unable to comprehend its meaning. Manjushri Bodhisattva explained that the term non-existence does not mean the absence of friends, but rather transcends the worldly definitions and attachments to the concept of existence. In the highest realm, there is no self, no other. How then can there be distinctions between existence and non-existence? The assembly of monks listened attentively as Bodhisattva Manjushri continued, stating that the Shakyamuni Buddha said in the Diamond Sutra, "No self-form, no person form, no sentient being form, no life continuum form." When we cling to the distinction between self and other, friendship becomes bound by limits, gain and loss, attachment and aversion. Once one transcends such discriminative thinking, perceiving everything as simultaneously existent and non-existent, yet bewildering, Satipatthana must be broadly understood. If said in this way, does it not negate the meaning of friendship? The Bodhisattva Subhuti shook his head gently and glanced swiftly. This was not a denial of friendship, but rather an elevation of friendship to a higher realm. Just as the vast ocean embraces hundreds of rivers, it makes no distinction based on the clarity or turbidity of the waters. Friendship within the Buddhist community should be boundless and vast. At this moment, Manjushri Bodhisattva picked up a fallen leaf from the ground and gently placed it in the palm of his hand. "Ananda, look at this leaf. It falls from the tree. Does it suffer from loneliness?" Ananda pondered for a moment. On the surface, it appeared solitary, but in reality, it was interconnected with the earth and sunlight. Manjushri Bodhisattva nodded briefly, acknowledging that you have grasped half of the understanding. All sentient beings are like these leaves, seemingly independent, yet actually interdependent. Friendship within the Buddhist community is precisely founded upon the wisdom of dependent origination and the understanding of emptiness. At this moment, Venerable Kasyapa approached and joined the discussion, saying that what the great wisdom Manjushri stated was absolutely correct. I recall that the Buddha once taught a parable about two antelopes traveling together on a treacherous mountain path, watching over each other and overcoming dangers together. There were no verbal agreements or exchanges of benefits between them, only instinctive mutual assistance and tacit understanding. This is the purest form of friendship. Manjushri Bodhisattva smiled gently, bowing his head, while Elder Kasyapa resembled those two antelopes, naturally supporting each other. A young monk raised his hand to ask, "Venerable Manjushri, I often hear the term good spiritual friend. Does this refer to a friend within the Buddhist community?" Manjushri Bodhisattva's gaze is compassionate and kind. A good spiritual friend can indeed be understood as a friend within the Buddhist community, but the meaning is far deeper. A spiritual friend is not only a companion, but also a guide who leads us towards enlightenment. On the path of cultivation, the role of a spiritual friend is irreplaceable. Ananda then asked, "How should we distinguish a true, good spiritual friend?" Manjushri Bodhisattva pondered for a moment and replied, "There are three ways to discern a good spiritual friend. First, observe their teachings and intentions. Second, observe whether their words and actions are consistent. Third, examine whether after associating with them, one becomes wiser and more compassionate." Suddenly, Manjushri Bodhisattva changed the tone and asked, "Ananda, do you consider the Shakyamuni Buddha to be your friend?" Ananda was momentarily speechless, unsure of how to respond. After a moment, he carefully said, "The Blessed One is my teacher, the object of my reverence. Calling him a friend seems insufficiently respectful." Manjushri Bodhisattva smiled meaningfully and asked Ananda, "Do you still remember what the Buddha said to Devdatta that day?" Ananda recalled, "The Buddha once told Devdatta, 'Even if you harm me in my heart, you are still my friend.'" Indeed, Manjushri Bodhisattva nodded, acknowledging that Shakyamuni is for the sake of all sentient beings, even those who harm him. This represents the highest realm of meaningfulness in Buddhism, unconditional compassion and tolerance. The monks present all listened with deep emotion. Manjushri Bodhisattva further said, "The meaning within the Buddhist teachings transcends secular definitions. It does not seek reward, does not weigh gains and losses, and does not differentiate based on good or evil. Just as water nourishes all things without seeking anything in return, the friendship of a noble person is as plain and unpretentious as water. This is the essence of the principle." Ananda suddenly remembered something. "I recall that the Buddha once said that half of universal practice comes from good spiritual friends, Kalyamatada, and the other half depends on one's own diligent effort." Manjushri Bodhisattva nodded approvingly, affirming, "Indeed, it is so. On the path of practice, the guidance and companionship of good spiritual friends are crucial, but ultimate enlightenment depends on one's own practice and insight." An elder bhikkhu asked, "Great wisdom, Manjushri, how should we practice this transcendental friendship in our daily lives?" Manjushri Bodhisattva looked kindly at the bhikkhu and said, "The path of practice is very simple. All sentient beings are equal, regardless of closeness or distance. Help others without seeking anything in return. Forgive others' faults as you forgive your own, and extend a helping hand when others are in need, without questioning the reason. More importantly, one must understand a truth. True friendship is about helping each other grow, not fulfilling one's desires. Sometimes, refusal is also an expression of love. Like Mengxiu, it is for the sake of his long-term benefit." Exactly so, Manjushri Bodhisattva nodded, indicating that intention is not merely to accommodate and satisfy, but to help others walk the path toward a higher and nobler way. This is true compassion. As the sun set in the west, the teachings of Bodhisattva Manjushri flowed like a clear spring into the hearts of every monk present. Ananda sighed with emotion. "Great wisdom, Manjushri. Your teaching today has given me a completely new understanding of friendship. Friendship is not attachment, but letting go, not seeking, but giving, not discrimination, but equality." Manjushri Bodhisattva smiled gently and rose to his feet, gazing at the sky as the countless stars slowly appeared. "Ananda, remember today's insight. True intentionality is like the countless stars scattered across the sky, seemingly separate, yet fundamentally one. It is like the great ocean and its waves, different on the surface, but identical in essence. At dusk, the afterglow bathed the entire monastery in a golden hue as Ananda and Bodhisattva Manjushri strolled along the stone path of the monastic courtyard. Ananda still harbored a doubt in his heart. "Great wisdom, Manjushri. You say that the beneficial mystery in Buddhism lies in non-existence. In daily life, how should we interact with friends in the secular world, especially those who have not yet been introduced to the Dharma?" Manjushri Bodhisattva paused, picking up a freshly bloomed flower by the roadside. "Ananda, observe this flower. It does not alter its inherent nature based on whether people appreciate it or not. Yet it can purify the minds of beings through its own beauty. Practitioners should interact with secular friends in the same manner. There is no need to strive to make others understand your state of enlightenment. Simply engage with them with a pure and sincere heart, and naturally, you will influence them." Ananda appeared thoughtful, as if reflecting on your teaching today, not to judge friendship by Maha's worldly standards, but to guide him with higher wisdom. "Precisely so," Manjushri Bodhisattva nodded. "True friendship does not lie in catering to the other's worldly desires. It lies in helping him to see a broader sky. Sometimes, this assistance manifests as gentle encouragement, and other times as firm refusal. What did Ananda recall? "I have witnessed the Blessed One's teachings to an ascetic. The ascetic was attached to extreme austerities, believing that only through them could liberation be attained. The world-honored one did not directly criticize him, but demonstrated the wisdom of the middle way through his own conduct. Ultimately, the ascetic was completely convinced and became a disciple of the Buddha. The filial piety of Bodhisattva Manjushri exemplifies the beneficial wisdom within the Buddhist path. is not about forcing others to accept one's own views, but about leading by example and subtly influencing others through one's conduct. Just like the spring breeze and nourishing rain, silent and subtle, yet able to nurture all beings, as the night deepens, starlight flows like water, illuminating every corner in awe. After bidding farewell to Bodhisattva Manjushri, Ananda stood alone under the Bodhi tree in deep contemplation. Today's conversation not only gave him a renewed understanding of dependent origination, but also deepened his comprehension of the entire Dharma. Like the inconspicuous branches and leaves on the Bodhi tree, the relationships between friends may seem minor, yet they support each other through wind and rain. Just as fallen leaves return to their roots, the giving and receiving within dependent origination ultimately return to the source of life, like the starry sky and the earth. The highest realm of friendship transcends distinctions and attains selfless compassion. From then on, Ananda underwent a fundamental transformation in his attitude toward friendship. He no longer dwells on the gains and losses in interpersonal relationships, but faces all sentient beings with an open and inclusive heart. Whether dealing with fellow disciples or helping those seeking aid in the secular world, he guides others towards the righteous path with wisdom and compassion. Many years later, when Ananda himself became the teacher of numerous bhikkhus, he often recalled the teachings of Bodhisattva Manjushri from that evening. Once, a young monk asked him how to handle conflicts with his companions. Ananda smiled and pointed to a flock of birds flying outside the window. Observe those flying birds. They come from different places and have diverse habits, yet they live harmoniously together. This is because they conform to nature and do not cling to the ego. As practitioners, we should handle interpersonal relationships with the same naturalness and non-action. The young monk suddenly realized that Shakyamuni had said the conflict between us stems from our respective attachments. Once these attachments are relinquished, the conflict naturally disappears. Ananda nodded with a smile. Exactly so. Friendship in the Buddhist community is not about forcibly emphasizing harmony, but about each person letting go of attachments and returning to their true nature. When a mind is like a bright mirror, it naturally reflects all things without leaving traces. Time flows like a river, and seasons change in turn. Ananda continually progressed on the path of practice, transmitting the wisdom of Bodhisattva Manjushri to more people. In Buddhism, the intentional truth is thus passed down from generation to generation, like a gentle stream nourishing the hearts of countless practitioners. Whenever Ananda saw the small grass and flowers beneath the Bodhi tree, the birds perched on its branches, or the countless stars in the night sky, he would recall the words of Bodhisattva Manjushri. True intention is like water that nourishes all beings without seeking anything in return, clear and transparent without becoming defiled by dust. This wisdom is applicable not only to the relationships among practitioners, but also to all interactions in the worldly realm. It tells us that true friendship is not about seeking or demanding, but about giving. It is not about attachment, but about letting go. It is not about discrimination, but about equality. When we face others with such a mindset, we naturally transcend worldly conflicts and attain peace and harmony of the mind. Just like that millennium-old Bodhi tree, enduring storms without falling, witnessing the joys and sufferings of sentient beings without wavering, sheltering all beings without exhaustion, embodying the gradually unfolding truth beneficial to life, and bringing warmth and the light of wisdom to those around.